This is not a warning, this is a threat. Major Undertale spoilers are coming. You will have the game spoiled for you if you watch this video. You have been warned.
What do a lamp, a piece of garbage flowing down a waterfall, and a plate of cold spaghetti have in common? If you said they're all items you can buy off Craigslist, you'd technically be correct.
Not bad.
But the answer we were looking for is that in Undertale, they're all things that fill you with determination.
When you're far from home, weary from battle, and searching desperately for the strength to go on, there's nothing like the hope of a mouse one day heating up a plate of spaghetti in the microwave to keep you going.
In Undertale, you play as a human who falls down a hole and lands in the underground realm of monsters. The game then consists of your journey back to the surface and all the locales you visit, characters you meet, and weighty moral decisions you make along the way. Decisions like, will you have Toriel make you a butterscotch pie or cinnamon pie? Will you tell Papyrus that Junior Jumble is a harder puzzle, or that crosswords are harder? Will you fulfill the snowman's dying wish by delivering a piece of him to the ends of the earth, or just eat his flesh right in front of him? It's really up to you.
Since 2015 when it first came out, Undertale has had incredible staying power, which, among other things, comes from its complex and lovable characters, its clever writing, and its iconic soundtrack. It also stands out for having 93 different endings that all pack an emotional punch. Depending on which ending you get, you'll experience the joy of victory, the depths of depravity, the warmth of friendship, the tragedy of good intentions, the dread of abused power, basically the whole gamut of human emotion. The endgame is one of the biggest highlights of Undertale, and with so many interesting and heartbreaking ways the story can play out, it's easy to see why players keep coming back.
But as exciting as each unique ending is, they're also just that. Endings. The end. They're great, but to get to them you have to play through the whole game first, which means if you're going to care enough to get to the end, everything that comes before the end has to be pretty good. And if you're going to care enough to get to the end multiple times, everything that comes before has to be pretty great. Like the wall art hanging in my bathroom says, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
And on its own, the Undertale journey is pretty great. Like we said, the characters are all uniquely endearing and fun to build relationships with, the writing is consistently clever and subversive, and the music is top notch.
Give me hopes and dreams or give me death.
Unfortunately though, other parts of the journey aren't as much of a slam dunk. The combat can be finicky at times, and some of the boss fights are absolutely unforgiving if you're inexperienced. It's also easy to get lost and hard to find what you're looking for when free roaming since there isn't a map. The story can also be confusing if you don't have a basic understanding of the game's lore and who each character is.
I remember on my first playthrough, I kept waiting for Nabstablook's villain arc. After all, he literally has the word stab in his name. It felt like it was just a matter of time. Little did I know the only thing he would be stabbing were my eardrums with his sick lo-fi spook wave beats. However big or small you consider these issues, you have to admit that they can be barriers to entry for new players and barriers to re-entry for returning players.
But even with these potential pitfalls, there's still a mainstay about Undertale that we think makes the whole journey worth it. A mainstay that encourages you to keep playing even when you're frustrated, even when you're lost, even when you're confused. A mainstay that encourages you to make different decisions and explore every nook and cranny of the game. A mainstay that looks, and feels, and smells a lot like a plate of cold spaghetti. We, of course, are talking about Undertale's use of humor.
When all else fails, Undertale's dedication to being funny, witty, and downright bonkers does not. Except on genocide runs, which we're going to ignore for the sake of this video. Within 10 minutes of starting the game, you can already tell what tone Toby Fox was going for. From Flowey calling bullets friendliness pellets, to this sentient rock calling you pumpkin, to Toriel looking like she's about to hit this frogget with a chancla, Undertale is goofy from the very start. Sure, with Flowey's attempted murder and sinister face and all that, you know bigger things are at play, but that grim tone is quickly overshadowed by a much more lighthearted one established by all the throwaway lines and funny interactions sprinkled in with extreme generosity.
Humor, then, is the constant of Undertale. Fight a boss? Get a funny line. Do a puzzle? Get a funny visual. Try to buy a hot dog? Get 30 of them stacked on your head. It's classic comedy. As you play through the game, the vistas may change, but the steady stream of humor does not. Except when you get to New Home, which we're going to ignore for the sake of this video.
And the jokes aren't limited to the straight and narrow of the main story. Wander off the beaten path and you'll still trip over jokes left and right.
If you're like us and were hooked on the point-and-click adventure games growing up like Arthur's Computer Adventure, the Jumpstart series, Putt Putt, Pajama Sam, or any of those games, then you'll remember that one of the best parts about them was being able to click on nearly any object in the environment and have it trigger a short goofy animation or a funny sound clip. Undertale is the exact same way. Interact with nearly any NPC, sign, trash can, bookshelf, rock, or pretty much anything, and you'll get a box with some silly or witty text in it. The only difference between those classic games and Undertale is the lamp from Undertale gives you a lot less sass than the lamp from Arthur's Computer Adventure.
Look, I'm a lamp. I turn on, I turn off. This is all I do. So go away.
It's such a funny surprise to knock on a door and hear the person on the other side relish in the pleasant knocking sound so much that they don't even answer it. Or to put in the work of lining up these lily pads so you can read this sign in the middle of the water, only for it to congratulate you on failing the puzzle. Or to find that Toriel has immaculate taste in chair names. The little things really are the big things in this game. I need to pause here and say we were working on the script for this part and looking for examples of funny text boxes, and Noah, in total sincerity, wrote, and I quote, "If you interact with the mirror in New Home, you get a message that says, despite everything, it's still you." This is a great example of a silly piece of throwaway dialogue that is easily missed if you're speeding through the game. So I just wanted to give him a space here to publicly apologize.
I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't understand the emotional gravitas of this line, and I apologize. I just thought it was a silly piece of throwaway dialogue that is easily missed if you're speeding through the game, but I now realize those 5 simple yet powerful words represent the museful spirit of Undertale and rightfully sit at the Undertale community's highest seat of adoration. I can't undo the hurt I've caused others. I can only promise to do better in the future. I hope you'll forgive me.
The humor of Undertale even extends to the monsters you encounter in your interactions with them. Snowdrake gets self-conscious about his pun-based comedy, Final Frogget has an existential epiphany mid-combat, Jerry is, well, Jerry. Everyone knows a Jerry. If you take the time to check and interact with every monster you encounter, you see that they're all hilariously fleshed out characters in their own right.
Based on all of this, it's obvious that humor wasn't an afterthought or an accessory that Toby Fox threw into Undertale just to make it more relatable on the internet, but something that was central to the game's identity from the very beginning. From sharper than normal nasal exhales to legitimate laugh out loud moments, nearly every joke lands, and on its own the humor is worth the price of the game.
But we don't think Mr. Fox used so much humor just to make the player laugh. No sir, that would be too simple. We think his use of humor goes deeper than that. Way deeper. So deep that it goes all the way down to true lab.
If you complete all the requirements for the True Pacifist run, you gain access to True Lab, a dank underground laboratory run by Dr. Alphys. After walking out of the elevator, you see several TVs on the wall, which, when interacted with, show Alphys' journal entries that chronicle her attempts to unleash the power of the soul. At the end of the wall is entry number 5, which reads, "I've done it. Using the blueprints, I've extracted it from the human souls. I believe this is what gives their souls the strength to persist after death, the will to keep living, the resolve to change fate. Let's call this power determination."
This reveal is huge. Throughout Undertale, the phrase "fills you with determination" shows up all over the place, especially at save points. Sometimes it follows a basic observation like, "The sight of such a friendly town fills you with determination," or "The wind is howling, you're filled with determination." But other times, like the examples we shared at the beginning of the video, it comes after a goofy scenario, like knowing the mouse might one day hack into the computerized safe and get the cheese fills you with determination.
Most of us read that and be like, "Yeah, that's funny," and then move on not thinking anything else of it since it doesn't seem like anything more than a stupid gag. But this seemingly inconsequential and objectively funny scenario is what, according to Alphys, gives you the will to keep living and the resolve to change fate.
Think about it. Mice don't have the cranial capacity or higher level functioning required to do something like hacking. It's absurd. But the even greater absurdity of holding out hope that the mouse will hack into the safe and get the cheese despite the many obstacles in its way, the sheer humor of the situation is the very thing that gives the protagonist the strength to keep going. It's the humor in the hope, and the hope in the humor that fills them with determination.
Similarly, we think the absurdity and humor of Undertale is meant to fill you, the player, with determination. Of course, the jokes in the game are there to make you laugh and keep things interesting and all that, but they're also there to keep you going. Alphys defines determination as the will to keep living, which we think, for players, translates to the will to keep playing. Even when the game gets frustrating, even when the game gets bleak, even when there doesn't seem like there's anything to laugh about, humor is a tool the game uses to fill you with determination.
Going back to some of the game's issues we talked about earlier, we think humor is the panacea that more than makes up for any of the game's potential shortcomings. Yeah, combat can be frustrating at times, but the humor, that's sometimes even infused into the combat itself, is so good that it makes you want to get good at the game and beat whichever boss you're stuck on so you can see what funny thing comes next.
Yeah, it might be easy to get lost without a map, but being forced to take the scenic route just encourages you to explore new areas and stumble across funny things you haven't interacted with before.
Yeah, the story can be confusing at first, but the humor leaves such a solid first impression that you're cool to just stick around for the jokes and let the pieces of the story fall in place as you go along. Like we said, when all else fails, the humor does not, and that's enough to keep you going.
In an even deeper sense, though, we think humor is the game's language of hope. If you've played Undertale, then you know the game isn't all meta jokes and puns. Beneath its blissful presentation are layers of tragedy, depravity, and dark consequences for your actions, a lot of which come to light at the end of the game. On any run where you've killed even one enemy, you're judged for your violent actions by Sans. Not only does this condemnation weigh on your conscience as a player, but it also has wide implications for the world inside the game. Depending on who you kill and the degree of your violence, you leave the world in a state that ranges from sorrowful resilience to total hopelessness.
These endings come as such a shock if you're new to the game because in a moment, your happy-go-lucky concept of all the game stands for is suddenly reframed through this lens of grim reality. And from this moment of judgment, all the way until the credits finish rolling, grim reality is all the game leaves you with.
Even on a true pacifist run where you don't kill any enemies and befriend everyone you're able to, which provides the most optimistic ending and is considered the true ending of the game, you face Azrael, a tortured soul who was once a young child killed in the war between humans and monsters. Even though by the end of the battle he finds redemption and closure from his evil past, you still can't bring him back to life. You save him in a sense, but you still have to let him go. For the quote-unquote best ending, that's still some hard stuff.
On the subject of humor, the game doesn't make light of these serious moments by cracking a joke to ease the tension. It's mature enough to let you sit in the discomfort of your emotions for a while. It does, however, lean into humor in a different way.
If you finish the game with a neutral ending, after the credits roll, you get a message from Flowey encouraging you to run the game back from the beginning, this time without killing anyone. In other words, the game itself holds out hope that you'll right your wrongs and seek to get the best possible ending for everyone. Like the humorous absurdity of the protagonist holding out hope that the mouse will one day hack into the safe and get the cheese, the game too, however absurdly, holds out hope that you'll one day return to the underground and make it a place where people can be humorous again.
Because in Undertale, humor isn't just the mindless banter between underground inhabitants. It's also the world's way of communicating hope, of expressing optimism for a better future. Specifically a future where the war between monsters and humans is over and the monsters are able to walk freely and alive from the underground where they've been kept. That's why the world on the genocide route is so markedly humorless. In this timeline, the underground, or what's left of it, has simply lost all hope.
So, when the game challenges you to go back to the beginning so you can get a better ending, what it's really asking you to do is let the humor you've experienced and the humor that's possible to be experienced, both for you as the player and for the characters in-game, fill you with determination.
Determination, which is, as Alphys defined it, the resolve to change fate.
But you might be thinking, didn't you just talk about how even the most optimistic ending in the game ends in sadness? What's the point of changing fate if it all still ends on a low note? Well, being the true ending of the game, the true pacifist route actually has an epilogue. Yes, it's heartbreaking to let Azrael go, and you can't change his fate, but you can change the fate of your friends and everyone else in the underground. First off, this is the only ending where you're able to stick around and talk to your friends after the final battle. Everybody reels from the events, but they quickly return to their goofy selves. Asgore protects his dad card by asking what an anime is, Toriel protects her mom card by finally getting texting on her phone, and Papyrus finds a way to call this the worst possible ending. Humor, that is, hope, is still there.
This ending also gives you the opportunity to free roam around the newly liberated underground and have fresh and funny dialogue with all the inhabitants. You can even find that, in a providential way, the mouse indeed hacked into the safe and got the cheese.
You love to see it. Most significantly, this ending enables you to destroy the barrier that separates the monsters underground from the humans above ground and allows everyone to step into the warm light of day.
I could just print this on a postcard.
The future, like the sun, is bright, and that's thanks to you and your dedication to a humorous world.
Determination. The will to keep living, the resolve to change fate. To be honest, that comes from a lot of things. Good friends, a sense of purpose, an optimistic outlook, knowing that you're loved. In Undertale and in life, there are a lot of things that fill you with determination.
But we think humor is unique in how, in Undertale and in life as well, it can show up just about anywhere. From the library, to the garbage dump, to the bake sale put on by a bunch of spiders, you can find something to laugh about, which sometimes is all you need to keep going. I just wanted to say again how sorry I am to all the fans in the audience. It was wrong of me to speak out against the Undertale community in such a disrespectful manner, and I plan to step away from the spotlight for a little while so I can do some soul searching. But hey, despite everything, it's still me, right? I also can't really afford to be canceled right now since my NFT investments took a turn for the worst. I was listening to a lot of Gary V podcasts and he kept screaming at me to buy. So I bought this one NFT that recreated the spaghetti and meatball scene from Lady and the Tramp with Robo-Dogs, but it turns out I just paid 0.39 Ethereum for a JPEG. So I'm currently working on getting my money back from that. And of course, that's not even to mention how the crypto bubble pop ruined me. That's when the real tragedy begins. It all started when I was a boy.